Treating babies using osteopathy and cranial sacral therapy. In this video, we're going to look at 4 aspects of treating babies. Number 1 is what is external focus and what is internal focus. Number 2 is why we want to be in an external focus, definitely not in that internal focus. Number 3 is why that internal focus is not good. And 4, if internal focus is so bad, what are concrete things we can do to stay in external focus to improve our ability to treat babies. Look at this piece of footage and I want to ask you a question. Where is my focus? Is my focus on baby or is my focus on myself? And I will hope that you can see that my focus is on baby. I'm waiting to see how baby responds, waiting to receive the information from baby telling me what I can do next for baby. Now that might be hands on and let's get some treatment, or it might be just waiting. It might be that baby wants to go back to mum. All of my focus here is externally focused. Am I trying to feel what emotions are going on for baby, or am I locked on my own emotions? Now you might think, well, that's kind of obvious. You're treating baby, of course you're going to be thinking about baby. Of course you're going to be focused on baby. But actually that's not always what happens. Because as soon as you have any fears or any anxiety about what you're doing, woof, internal focus. Now, of course, we're going to have those things come up, which is why we're doing this video, so I can dig into that, so you see what's going on with that, and so you have concrete things to stop you getting locked into that internal focus. You're always going to have doubts and fears come up, but is it a case of, oh dear, baby doesn't like that, boom, back into external focus. What can I do about that for baby, rather than, oh no, I hope baby doesn't start crying, or mum really doesn't look like she's happy with this treatment, or how am I going to get hands on the head? The baby won't let me touch their head. What's going to go on there? Surely they're going to ask for their money back at the end because they've come in asking me to deal with head shape and I haven't even touched the head and it's 15 minutes in. All that brain stuff starts to go, internal focus. So you can see how one tiny little thing, tiny little bit of doubt takes it into internal focus and away from external focus. Now that's a kind of big example of what can happen, but hey, I've had that happen to me in the past when I first started treating baby. Those things can happen. But they can also happen on a lot more subtle level. If we come back to this footage here, we're just letting baby relax and do their thing. And if there's a bit of doubt that comes up with me, and I'm sure there was like, wow, when am I going to get some hands-on on baby here? Then I just have to kind of let that go a little bit, because if it doesn't, then what happens is we get a biofeedback loop, and my fear starts to create more fear for myself. But not only does that pick up for me, but that also mum and baby pick up on that, particularly baby. Baby gets that, whoa, okay, I don't like being near this person because their nervous system is really rucked up. Of course, they don't think that. That's an intuitive thing where they want to go towards safety. And as we start to lose that connection with baby, it becomes harder in terms of our decision making in knowing what to do. What happens is we'll start to make bad decisions. And by bad decisions, I mean we chase after baby. We try to get them to lie down in a certain position and lie still. We start to push a little bit too fast. We start to accelerate when we get our hands on our head, and rather than waiting and establish in a proper connection first. And so it's push, 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 and our agenda gets pushed. And if anyone has ever tried to put a baby to sleep when you've got an agenda, like you're trying to get downstairs to make a phone call or watch TV or just spend time with your partner, if you ever try to do that with a baby or a child, you'll know the baby is onto it like a flash. They feel your intent pushing. You haven't even put hands on them. They feel that little bit of push, and it stops you making the connection with baby. Now, in addition to that, if you already have made the connection with baby, you're 10, 15 minutes into treatment and treatment is going really well, and then you just move to a particular area like the head, or you just try and do something that baby doesn't like, or you simply haven't given baby a chance to have a little bit of a break, go back to mum. All of these different examples. And baby starts to be a little bit uncooperative. Now that might kick up a little bit of fear in you, it's fine. Then you back off and you re-establish that contact. And if you don't, if you start being internally focused and like, oh, okay, what's going on? And you start to focus on your agenda of pushing a little bit, then what happens is that connection starts to break and you lose the ability to work out what is you and what is baby. Now what I mean by that is as your anxiety levels start to pick up, your feedback starts to pick up, you start to crowd out. Let's say there's this much amount of information going on in the world that you're getting from baby. Then you want like this bit here to be you and all the rest of it to be baby. Now what happens is as your feedback system starts to pick up and your anxiety starts to pick up, then this starts to get filled up with your information, not baby. And so when you don't feel what's going on so much with baby, maybe that cranium or the sacrum or whatever, you can't really tell whether that's because you've lost connection with baby because that's an area that isn't working particularly well and needs more treatment, or that baby is overloaded and needs a bit of a break, or it's because your information has flooded into baby and scared baby and broken that connection. So that is why the external focus is so key when you're treating babies. It's on multi layers throughout the start of treatment all the way through different layers, whether you're subtly working with them, whether you're not so subtly working with them. Your ability to stay focused externally, not internally, is so key to your success with babies. Okay, so if that internal focus is so bad for treating baby, what are we going to do about it to stay in our external focus? And that's what I want to cover for you now. Now the first step is very simple, and it's being aware of this problem. And that's why I've taken this time to really dig into understanding external versus internal, so you really get this, so you have a graphic picture in your mind of what happens when that internal focus gets locked in and things start to break. So just being aware of that will keep you initially in that external focus. It won't keep you there forever, but it'll start you off in that place, and that is a good place to start. Now number 2 is filling your mind with good stuff, giving your brain food that's good for it, food that it can eat and feast on. If you are focused on baby's anatomy, you're thinking sacrum. Okay, sacrum attaches to the innominate, kind of pretty basic, but you just visualize that. I'm visualizing the hand of the sacrum. I'm visualizing that sacrum. I'm visualizing the innominate. Now, can I remember, in a baby, was it different to an adult? Did it have different ossification centers? Are they fused yet? Is the acetabulum fused? All of these things, when you're thinking about that, you're thinking externally. You're thinking about baby, the bits of baby's body. You're thinking about L5, L4, 3, 2, 1. What about the diaphragm? What about going up through the rest of the spine? If I move up to the cranium, I do not have to move your hand up there, but your intent up there. What about the occiput? Was the occiput in one piece or more than one piece when the baby was born? Okay, how does the SDS move? What happens when the sphenoid moves into flexion? What happens with the temporals? All the time you're thinking about that, you are not thinking internally, you're thinking externally. So as soon as you start to get those worries and fears, start thinking externally. Now that is an example when you have your hands on baby, but if you didn't have hands on baby, if you were at the start of treatment and you start to get the internal focus, then you can start to think, how is baby feeling? What is baby experiencing at this moment? And you can tune into that. When you try and tune into that, you stop tuning into your own stuff and it cuts the loop. You're thinking, right, okay, does baby need to be closer to mum? What toy can I give to baby so that they are distracted from obviously the emotions that are going through, the fears that are going through? So you're thinking externally what's going on for baby, and then you're trying to create that into concrete action. Now that's the same whether you're with baby with hands on. Your concrete action there is you thinking and your intent going to different parts of the body. And when your hands aren't on, it's like, where can baby be placed? Can you place baby with mum? Do you need to pick baby up and move baby around so that their focus then starts to go a little bit externally to their surroundings? You see how we can use this in 2 ways, for ourselves, but also for baby. So that point number 2 is what can we do in a concrete thing to get us out of our internal focus. And if we think of that in our wider aspects of our lives, then that is also key as well. If we think about depression, we think about anxiety, whether it's our own or someone else's, well, it's that ability to cut the loop. You know, it's that whole thing, it's like, get outside and go for a walk. You know, and the person that's depressed, they can't do that. They can't do that because that causes more anxiety, or they can't break the loop because they're locked in that inner focus. And so I want to give that there to you as an example, because action early is the key, whether it's for yourself or for somebody else. Early action is the key. Once we're locked into that loop, it's really hard to get out. Not impossible, certainly not, but it's harder. So we want that early action. And we see this same here with baby, that early action when you notice that thoughts going internally, I'm all over that, I'm going to get that external focus. Now the third action point that you can do to have that external focus is much deeper than those previous two. In fact, that number 2, it's kind of like a little bit of a trick to get you into number 3. And number 3 is to be actually a lot more like a baby. And so it's a little bit like be a baby to treat a baby. And what I mean by that is that babies have this amazing ability to just receive. They're just like this big antenna that just says, give me information. All of this stuff is so new to me. It's like incredible. Wow, amazing. Taking in information all the time. Now, of course, as adults, we're also taking in information all the time, but it's filtered. It's filtered by our experiences to date, and that filter creates this mesh. And so every single little stimulus that comes into us, whether it's from our eyes or whether it's taste, smell, hearing, is judged. Our mind is sieving and judging that. That's danger, that's not danger. That person said that and it means this to me. Something happens and it creates an emotion to us. Oh, we feel injured. All of this time, judgment. And so we want to be like a baby when we're treating a baby. And that is absolute gold dust, not just for the treatment of babies, but because it will change your life. And I will tell you that because it changed my life. It's one of these, it changed my life story. But it did. When I started treating babies, my ability to be kind to other people, my ability to have joy in life dramatically changed. Does it still have a long way to go? Can I be a grumpy bum? Can I be selfish? Absolutely, 100%. But it changed me, fundamentally changed me. Was that in one treatment? No, of course, it was over several treatments. But as I had to start getting into this external focus rather than this internal focus, and that was survival because I couldn't treat babies otherwise. You know, it was just what I had to do. Then I started to change internally. I started to have more external focus in my life, in everything I did. But that sense of just being open and receiving information coming in without being filtered allowed my mind to just calm. And so if we come back to this footage here, we're just hanging out with baby. There is zero agenda. There is no agenda. We can sit here for 30 minutes. Now, of course, after 20 minutes, I'm going to be a bit like, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to be able to charge the patient for this treatment. But you know what? That's okay. If you have that in your mind, well, okay, that's the worst that happens. I'll give the patient the money back and say, hey, it was great fun, but we didn't get anywhere with treatment. Let's try again tomorrow. And by the way, baby's going to be a lot more receptive because, of course, they had a half an hour experiencing a non-agenda type environment. Babies love that. So with this footage, there's absolutely zero agenda. But because there's zero agenda, we get to do what we need to do with baby in terms of treatment because baby is happy. Baby's like, oh, I'm hanging out with another baby. How cool is that? That's just awesome. And my mum's here as well. Great, let's just have a party. Let's just, hang out. And they are so much more receptive to that treatment. So point number 3 is be receptive, be open, let the information flood into your brain. And if it floods into your brain, you're just 100% external focus. Your brain is filled with all of the incoming data and it has this sense of wonder with what's going on with the world. And then when you put your hands on, your hands naturally receive all of that information. And your hands will know, even if your brain can't interpret what's going on. Because what's happening in your brain is interpreting what's going on. It's just you haven't switched to that other focus of that interpretation. You're receiving and you haven't gone into analytics. Now, analytics are dangerous at this stage because it will switch off the receiving and it will switch you into judgment mode. And so at this stage, what we're doing is just receiving. The hands are an antenna, receiving. And then the hands connect beautifully with baby, and that connection gets you the change with baby. And baby is already changing. Their self-healing mechanism is doing the work and changing. But if you need to move into specific treatment, into specific movements with your hands, unwind or whatever you want to do, that still happens. And you keep your brain in that receiving mode, and your hands naturally know what to do, and the treatment works beautifully. Now, after you take your hands off, will you be able to remember everything in your brain? No, you can't, but that's fine, because you're like in a poetry mode. It's like a poet or a musician that creates this great art, and then afterwards you ask them to analyze it. They're like, well, I can give you an idea of it, and they start to explain why they said these words, but it's not the same. It's okay, and you can write down notes down, and it helps in terms of our next treatment, and it helps in terms of their explanation with mum and dad, and it's okay, like the poet explaining their poem. But is it the same as the poetry? No, it's not as the same as the poetry. That was a moment in time that was unique, that was divine, if I could be so bold as to use that word. It is just creation. That is what you're doing. You're doing something unique, and baby shifts. And that's what changes you. As a practitioner, as a person, that changes you, and it changes baby, and it's just awesome. So if you can repeat these moments, it's tiny moments, they build up and build up and build up, until over time, after you've been treating babies for a long time, then you naturally would get in that state, and you don't have to worry with those other things about, okay, do I need to fill my mind with anatomy? Do I need to do this other kind of tactic? You naturally will be in that state, and that's when mums and dads say to you, wow, baby just really likes you. Baby never quiets like that for me. And so that is what you're aiming for, but one step at a time. And look, when you're doing this, do not get worried if you're not instantly in that state. So that is part of the end journey for you, but that won't come initially, and that's fine. It's the journey that's important. So get in and enjoy the journey. Get in and enjoy those things of, oh, there I was, internal focus. Can I get externally focused? Ah, baby's starting to settle. Baby still isn't settling. Baby's still crying the house down. Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to go back in internal focus. I'm going to stay with my external focus. And if that's what happens, that's what happens. I know no one else could have treated them at that moment, because it was what was going on with baby. There's something going on with baby that doesn't allow treatment, or doesn't allow as much treatment at that moment. I'm still externally focused. I'm happy with the situation. We'll just try again tomorrow. Hopefully this has inspired you to treat babies, or to treat more babies, because yes, they can be a tough crowd, and you get from this video that they can create anxieties and fears for you, but the upside, wow, the upside is so amazing that I would say it's something you really should do. Treat babies is amazing. If you like this video, just hit the like button, subscribe, and you'll see more.